Okay, so we're going to stretch this face rough cut out so that it goes all the way down to X0, Z0 here. And we're going to do that just by going in and adding an extra piece of CAD from the top of this inside chamfer here all the way down to 0, 0. You can do that just by going to Draw, Line, Point to Point, and then on the left here, pressing this button, Snap. Snap will let us grab onto an existing endpoint. I'm going to pick Snap if near. And if I just kind of set my cursor over here at the top of this ID chamfer, you can see when my cursor gets close, it kind of grabs onto that corner point. I'm just going to left-click once, and again, it wants to know, this is draw a line point to point. You're just going to give it 2 points. It'll connect the dots. It wants to know where the end point is. We want to go down to exactly X0, Z0, so I'm going to type that in on the keyboard. I'm going to press X and 0 and just hit Enter, and then Z and 0 and just hit Enter, and then Enter to confirm. Now for G-code, there's a way to kind of stretch out the cut without artificially kind of adding in these lines. But for Mazotrol, usually on a face rough, you're doing an edge process or a facing process. And unlike the bar process, instead of having a CPTX, CPTZ, it's just offsetting the shape lines. So for Mazotrol, we actually need to put in a set of lines kind of going up the face here too. Now when you draw something, the command is modal, so I'm still on draw line point to point. You can see down here it still says select start XY, so I'm going to go up to kind of cover this other area up here too. Even though graphically we showed you it was cutting it, for Mazotrol to get a good facing process, you need shape lines up here in this area as well. You want shape lines to cover the entire front face. So for the start point, I'm just going to move it near the top of this, blue highlight here. Left click once, it kind of grabs right onto that point, and again I'm going to end it. I'm going to type in this exact ending point. I'm going to type in X 7.25 or 3 in this case. I added a little bit extra. Enter on the keyboard, and then Z and 0, Enter, and then one more, Enter to confirm. Now I've got the yellow CAD on here that I need. You can see though it's not blue, so it's not going to be included as part of the cut. To make it simple to add to the cut, I'm going to hit Done here. I'm going to go back to Modify, and towards the bottom, Edit Chain. When we talk about editing a chain, the chain is the word we use for that blue highlight. That's this kind of blue highlight right here, which is what the final edge of the part is. That's what we're cutting. We're just going to add a little bit more to that highlight without having to redo the whole cut. I'm going to go to Append to End of Existing Chain, which means I'm going to add a little bit more onto the end of some cut I've already got. It's going to say at the bottom, select which chain. Well, that's this blue highlight right here. Any part of this front face is fine. I'm going to left click on it, and then at the bottom left over here it says Select Next Object. I'm going to pick this bottom piece. Now it will rough all the way down to 0. Now again, for G-code that's fine, but for Mazotrol we also need to include this upper piece as well. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to Modify again and Edit Chain, and this time I'm going to go to not Append to End. We're not going to add more onto the end. We're going to add more onto the start. So I'm going to hit Add to Start here, and once again on the bottom left it says Select Which Chain. I'm going to pick this middle piece. What do you want to add onto it? It says down here, Select First Object. Okay, I'm just going to pick this piece. Again, the white X is where it's going to start, so kind of back the starting point up. So now this highlight includes the entire kind of front area of the bar that I want to rough. Normally you don't have to worry about this, but again, we want to make sure we get a particular kind of Mazotrol process, an edge face, and we want to make sure the shape lines are going to be good, so we're going through this extra step. If you go to rerun the toolpath that you've got by going to Tool/Cut, Show Path at the bottom, and let's say All Tools, it'll now kind of do a face rough that goes all the way down the front face. It might be going a little slow. You can use the keyboard, the number keys at the top of the keyboard, to speed up or slow down the display. If you press number 1, for example, it'll slow the display down. If you press number 2, it'll speed it up slightly from what its kind of default speed is. So if I press 3 or 4, it'll really kind of pick up here. So we've got 2 or 3 roughing passes and a finish pass. Here's the finish pass here. And then it'll stop and kind of wait for you to do the next thing. If you see, if you see some command down here, it'll tell you kind of what it's expecting. If you just see a tool number, then it's just kind of showing you, hey, I just ran tool 1, we're done. Okay, we're ready to finish this up now and turn this into actual code. The only thing we need to do to make a Mazak program is press this blue M right here. In this case, I've already made a program, so it says, are you sure you want to overwrite it? Yeah, that's fine, and for the purposes of this example. So it brings up a list of Mazak controls. Remember earlier it didn't matter which lathe machine we picked. This is why. Here is the actual list of conversational Mazak controls. So for example, if I want to make a matrix program, I can pick matrix on here, and then select highlighted one. It'll ask me to confirm the program number I want to use. I'm just going to say 1234 and hit OK. And then it will actually generate the Mazak program. I went a little off screen here. So here is the program here. It's a facing process. You may or may not be using position B on the matrix. That's fine. We have a setting we can use to turn that on or off. Here's your Z stock for that process. It's got two tool lines. Remember we had a tool info page where we kind of filled out the data about the roughing tool. This is the GNL out 1A tool ID. This is the depth per peck in the cut info window. Over right on the right side here we got the spindle speed. That's from the tool info window. And the roughing feed rate, that's again from the cut info window. Because in the cut info we told it to do a quote-unquote cleanup pass, it developed a finishing tool as well. The finisher is just a copy of the rougher. So if you wanted a different tool, you'd have to edit it right here in our editor. And then you can see down here the shape lines. The starting X is the height of that line we constructed on the front face. The starting Z is the start point. When we originally set up the cut, we picked a starting point as if we were making a bar face. It looks at the Z position of that starting point to figure out where to begin this facing process. And then of course you can see the ending point is at 0, 0, and here's the finishing feed. Oh, I'm sorry, here's the finishing feed, excuse me. Okay, the Mazak program will be made in the same folder as your graphics file. In this case, because it's a matrix program, it'll name the file a little bit different than the CAD. It'll name it whatever your program number is, .ppf. Now, this is a separate file from the graphics. Once you've created it, it's disassociated from the CAD. If you make changes here, this doesn't update the graphics. But you can always convert from Mazatrol here back to the graphics to update it if you want at a later time. To make G-code out of this, I'm going to close this program and close the Mazak utilities. This is the source kind of file. If I press this button here at the very top right, 0123G90X, it'll make a G-code program. Again, I've already made it once, so it asks me if I want to overwrite it, and I'm just going to hit Enter for yes. It'll ask me a program number. I'm going to type in 1234 again. Alright, it makes the program. It doesn't open it up like it does on the Mazak side, so on the right, just hit this icon just above the blue M, that little NC Utilities icon. Left-click on it once, and then come down here and hit the Edit button. And again, it will make a file by the same name as the graphics file in the same folder, but the G-code program will have the .nc extension. Here's the G-code program. We only have one thing going on here. You can see it calls up tool 1. I'm sorry, here this is prepping tool 1 here. This is no offset. Here we have fixed RPM, fixed RPMs, just to kind of get the tool close apparently. And then here we're actually calling up tool 1. Here is the constant surface speed on once it gets close to the part. And then this is the canned face rough cycle, the G72. Going on down here, this is the canned finish pass. And then it kind of puts the tool away, cancels the tool, and M30 calls it a day. So that's it. This is the very basics of completing a GeoPath face rough cut.